How's it going? I've got a love-hate relationship with floating plants. Floating plants. Floating plants. Floating plants. I mean, look at it. I don't think you can get any further. They're growing on top of themselves and they're coming out the top there. I mean, this is what I don't like about floating plants. It just completely dominates, takes over. And it's quite a powerful little light, and yet not very much is coming through, which means everything underneath it suffering. Well, I mean, it's just the plant, really. So what potentially could be happening is that all of eye stems could be going leggy, so greater length of distance between the leaf nodes, producing a weaker plant. That's potentially what's happening. I mean, I can't really see because it's too dark. I mean, it's not a big problem. Of all the problems in the world to have, you can think of worse, can't you? But you just have to keep on top of it. I'm going to be using some of these floating plants a bit later. Let's talk about why they're good. They're a really easy way to increase plant mass in an aquarium. And the more plants you have in an aquarium, the more stable it's going to become. The floating plants offer a really nice cover so that more timid fish feel a bit safer, which is great. And also, floating plants can be used to help you sort of identify if there's anything wrong with the aquarium. So if you've got nutrient deficiencies that are going to impact on the other plants, things like that, they can act as like a canary in the mine shaft, as you were. I've started using red root floaters recently, over the past sort of 3 to 5 months. 5 months, something like that. And it's been really insightful for me because it's made me realise that a lot of my lights probably aren't powerful enough, actually. This is the first aquarium I've got where I've actually managed to get the red root floaters to turn red. I used to think it was like to do with iron and stuff like that, but now I'm realising it's to do with light conditions. So the higher the light, the more red the roots grow. The higher the light, the more red the roots become. That's been something I've learned recently. So going forward, some of my other aquariums, I'm almost certain now that a lot of the problems I may be getting from them is because the light isn't good enough. So I've learned, which is what we're always trying to do, isn't it? Anyway. Hopefully some of you have seen this already. This is my shrimp vase set up a few weeks ago. I've realised that this, through watching my floating plants, that this light is not powerful enough at all for this. Which is a shame really, because I quite like the setup, I quite like how it's all mounted to this board. But yeah, not good enough, I'm afraid. So, thankfully, I've got a pretty well lit room downstairs. Natural light, it's got a skylight. It's north facing so it doesn't get direct sunlight, but it's got loads of good light. So I'm going to try putting this on there and see how that gets on, because the days are getting longer. It's well into springtime now here in the UK. And I think it will do better than what it is with this. And the reason why I'm thinking that is because of my floating plants. Admittedly, I haven't had this light on for the past sort of longer than that, for the past 5-6 days. I've had trouble with the timer, so it's probably accelerated the problems. But a lot of my floating plants, I've got red root floaters and water lettuce, they're just melting away and dying. I've done a water test and that's fine, so it's not an issue there. And the other plants are growing quite well. Got a couple of leaves that need trimming off because of probably like transplant shock or something like that. But I've got loads of new growth coming through, which makes me think that it's not the water or the soil. Makes me think it's light. So this is coming away from the mini studio, but that gives me a bit more space for a new project. So this is what we are going to replace the vase with up here. This is an all-in-one kit that I bought from Swell UK. I think it's, I'm not too sure of the dimensions. Oh, that's it. I think it's either, I think it's about 30 centimeters by 30 centimeters. A little bit longer, I think it may be 32 centimeters up and down. Comes with this little, typical. Try that again. Comes with this light. Not too sure how powerful it is, but we now know that we can use the floating plants, the red root floaters, to indicate if it's powerful enough or not. But the kit comes with a little heater, mini internal filter, a net, one of these things. Probably won't use that. Dechlorinator and a bit of fish food. Not too sure of the full price. I think it's 80 or 90 quid for the whole thing, but I got it during the spring sale, so I think it was about £45. I think it's all right for £45. Still not entirely sure what hardscape I'm going to use. I got these bags from Riverwood Aquatics in, I think it's in Suffolk. These are Weo. These are 2 bags from Weo. I've got Nano Rock. These are the elderly ones. And I've got some Black Venom ones, which are a bit more rounded, pebbly. They're both very dusty, so they're going to need a proper rinse with cold water before it goes anywhere near that aquarium. But I don't know, I've got options here for rocks. I've got a bit of spiderwood or a bit of manzanita I might use. But I want to do something that I've not done in an aquarium before. I mean, I've used aquasoil and I've used sand. I've used them a little bit together. But in this one, I want to definitely have a sand foreground. I also want to have a sand path. And I'm going to try and do a bit of perspective, a bit of distance. Trying to use some clever planting to sort of amplify that effect. Don't know how it's going to turn out, but I've got an idea inside my head as to what I'm trying to achieve. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. And I've got an idea about what we're going to do with the inhabitants, but I'll tell you about that later. First, we need to get the substrate going. No. First, I want to get a background on this. It helps sort of cover up any wires, things like that. And that's what I want to do first. Now that's all sorted, we can then start getting our substrate system in. On all the other tanks up here, I've used old aquasoil gravel sand mix that I've saved from previous scapes. Trying something different on this one. I've got a bag of substrate from Tropica. This has got nutrition in it. I'm going to put in a small little layer on the base. I'm then going to use some Tropica aquarium soil for the main sort of planting areas. And then I'm unsure which one, but I've got two types of sand. I've got quite a coarse sand here. It's got quite a nice mix of colours. I think this might marry a bit better with the, what's the stuff called? Black venom stone. I don't know if you're going to see that on screen. I think that's going to work a little bit better. But the other options for sand I've got is this Hugo Kamishi decorative substrate. And it's quite a fine sand, but it looks quite, I don't know, quite contrasting compared to this black stone. So I'm probably going to use this coarser stuff on this one. I'll use this for next scape coming up. Right, start off with the substrate. A little bit more. I've never used it before, so I don't know how it's going to act. Yeah, I'm just going to use a bit. I think best to use small amounts. Oh, it's got a funny smell. Oh, don't like that. So this is 2 bags worth of the black venom stuff. It's quite a lot. There's some reasonable sized ones and some pretty small ones as well. So I've got a nice range. I've given these a rinse, but they're still a bit dusty, so we'll see how that goes. Now this is quite a small cube, so I'm going to get a couple of larger ones in the front to help create that barrier between the soil and the sand. And then I'm going to use some of the smaller ones in the back along the path to try and create a bit of perspective. I think though I'm going to try and get some of the big ones in first, and then get some more substrate in. I'm going to get a few scoops of aquasoil in on these back 2 sides. Just going to start building up the substrate a bit. It's going to make getting these rocks in a little bit easier. Give them something to purchase against. I'm going to use this coarser sand. Don't know how well that's coming up on the camera. It's got a quite nice mix and a few black bits in there. I think it's going to look better than the lighter stuff. But even then, I'm not 100% sure how it's going to go. So hopefully you could see I was really building up the sand there, pulling out the stones as I was layering up the sand. Ultimately, I wanted the sand slightly more proud than the aqua soil. As you can see, as you saw, the aqua soil is right down in there, so I'm going to be able to plant in and around the stones quite happily. So I'm really going to plant this up quite heavily. Might even try and get a few in amongst the path. I am going to try and see what it looks like with a bit of wood in there, just on either side, just to help sort of distinguish between the fore and the background. I'll try it, see how I feel. Now, because the width of the aquarium is quite narrow, I just couldn't get this other piece of wood to fit, so I've decided just to go for this single piece of wood. It's buried just behind this piece of rock here, and I've put in another small piece of rock underneath it, so I'm going to glue it quite heavily to that, so it shouldn't float, hopefully. And yeah, I'm going to help, hopefully, use this wood to help frame that, which would be our vanishing point. So that's hopefully off center. You hear about the golden ratio and all of that. So whilst the glue's drying, I just want to talk over the plants I'm going to be putting into this hardscape, into this aquascape. So for the foreground, I've got these three. I probably won't use all of them, but it's not the biggest. But I've got a pot of Eleocharis reticularis, which is like a dwarf hairgrass. But this can grow up to like 10 centimeters tall, so I'm going to have that in the front. I'm going to mix in some Marsilia hirsuta. Anyone who's seen any of the other videos will know that I'm a big fan of this stuff. I've got a Cryptocorini pygmea, which is I think the next one up from Cryptoparva. I use a lot of Cryptoparva, so this is me trying to branch out, do something a bit different. And I've got a Bucephalandra needle leaf, which is going to go onto this onto the wood there. And for to create the perspective, I've got another Eleocharis, but this is Parvula. So this is a smaller version of the hairgrass. I'm going to get a few tufts of that towards the back of this path here, and hopefully that's going to help bring that sort of idea of perspective. And then I've got two types of Rotala. I've got a pot of Rotala rotundifolia in the tank just over there. I won't show you that. But I've also got this from Aquatic Farmer, which is Rotala rotundifolia Wayanad. So this is going to populate the main sort of areas in these back areas here. And hopefully, as they get taller, they're going to sort of branch over a bit like that to help sort of focus the eye on the vanishing point. Look at me trying to be a proper aquascapist. Aquarist? Aquascapist. Aquascaper. Right, I'm going to get these prepped whilst that glue dries, and then we'll get planting. Now I've got the first plants prepped. That's the Eleocharis articularis, Marsilia, and the Crypt Pygmy. I'm going to get these guys in first, and then go on to the next one. Last thing I want to do is get this Bucephalandra needle leaf in. I'm going to glue it. A bit cheating. It's like a lot of people just like to wedge it into areas, but I don't want to run that risk of it floating out on her arm, so I'm just going to cheat and put in some dabs of glue. If I can get some glue out. Okay. That. Another piece just on this rock, actually just in the front of this tree, on this branch, just to help cover that join. The next day, I ran out of time yesterday, did all I could, but we're all filled up. Everything that's planted is looking fine. Got a few bubbles, I'll get rid of those in a second. I now want to get the stem plants in. So I've got this tub of Rotala rotundifolia Wayanad and Rotala rotundifolia, what's the label? Oh yeah, just simple Rotala rotundifolia. So I'm going to get these guys prepped and get them in.